Hi, I'm Greedy Colleen in the CapeCod.com News Center, and welcome to Sunday Journal. I'm joined today by Mark Forrest, Barnstable County Commissioner. Now, we have a whole bunch of topics I wanted to cover today. We're really going to run the gambit. But first, I kind of wanted to ask a little bit more about you and your relationship to former Cape Cod Congressman Bill Delahunt. He has unfortunately passed away recently at the age of 82, and my understanding is that you've actually worked rather close with him over the years. Do you mind just elaborating more on your relationship?
No, I'm happy to talk about Bill and his work, serving and representing the people of the 10th, at the time, the 10th Congressional District. And that's a region that covered Quincy and along the South Shore and Cape Cod and the islands. And I served initially as his district director, and then I became his chief of staff and worked out of Washington.
Now, how long did you actually work alongside him? Were you there and as also, at what point in your life was this for you? Was this one of your first forays into politics and policymaking, or was this something that you were kind of old hand at some point? How was it from your point of view?
Well, for me, I started my career in Provincetown in the town manager's office. And my background is in municipal management, so my intention was to be a town administrator after I received my master's degree in public administration. I worked for a while I was getting my degree for the Harwich Board of Selectmen, but then once I finished things up, I went to Provincetown and worked in the town manager's office there for 5 years. My projects were largely focused on the fishing industry, redeveloping the waterfront. I was very involved in dealing with groundwater contamination and efforts to clean that up. And that's when I got to know Congressman Gary Studs. And so I joined his staff in 1985 and worked with him to the end of his career when he retired in 1996. And then when Congressman Bill Delahunt was elected in 1996, he asked me to join his staff and continue the work of Congressman Studs, Studs was a very popular congressman on the Cape, and he was very dedicated to protecting the environment, protecting groundwater, to protect a whole, I think, array of interests and services on the Cape. And so I joined Bill's staff in that capacity, and the work was just intense, and I stayed with him from the very beginning until the very end. And then after that, he and I had a consulting firm, and we worked on a number of critical issues facing Massachusetts in that capacity. And then I ran for county commissioner and moved on from my work with the congressman and decided it was time to sort of chart my own course. And I've been county commissioner now for a while, and I've enjoyed every minute of it.
Did you bring any lessons from your time with Bill Delahunt into your leadership role as the Barnstable County Commissioner? Were there some lessons that stuck out to you as we were kind of reminiscing on his tenure in the office?
Well, in terms of lessons and lessons learned, actually, I've been sort of sharing those lessons and sharing those insights. As a teacher, I'm an adjunct professor of government at Cape Cod Community College, so between helping graduate students understand municipal management and public administration, I've also enjoyed times with undergraduates understanding American government, our Constitution, the Bill of Rights, how government works, and insight just from my experience, my many years being on Capitol Hill. And I've enjoyed it. The students have been terrific to work with, and so it's been a lot of fun. But I think, in terms of that experience, it also has been incredibly helpful as a county commissioner. There's no doubt about that, Grady.
It is wonderful to hear all these people coming out in support of his tenure and remembering him fondly. I also wanted to, of course, cover all the stuff going on at the Barnstable County level and some of the plans that have been ongoing from your guys' point of view. But before we do, is there anything else you wanted to add about the congressman before we switch topics?
Well, I think, over the past few days, I just want to say thanks to so many people who just have reached out to me to express their condolences to me and to the Delahunt family. It's just been an incredible outpouring, and we're all very appreciative. But it's also worth sort of reflecting a little bit on Bill's priorities, because the issues he was very concerned about, he worked on, are issues that we're battling and dealing with today. For example, protecting the environment, protecting our water supplies, protecting our estuaries, our embayments, our coastal resources. All very important and areas of real passion to Congressman Delahunt, but also areas of real passion to many town officials and folks all throughout the Cape. What I think is helpful, it might be to just talk a little bit about some of the things that Bill actually was able to accomplish while he served as a congressman. I don't think people realize that with respect to the pollution out at the military base, back in 1996, Cape Codders were really concerned about the management of that whole cleanup going well. There were reports of mistakes and all sorts of problems with it. So when he came in, he basically helped overhaul the whole cleanup program and then worked on making sure that project was totally funded. Now, we're talking about a project that today has just passed the $1.5 billion mark. So it's been an incredibly expensive project, and Bill was able to make it a priority in Washington. So that project has pretty much received all the necessary funding that is needed. It's one of the most expensive initiatives, around the country, and Bill was a real champion for getting it well managed, but also getting it well funded. He was very active in terms of restoring funds to our Coast Guard stations in 1996. The Congress had cut funds to many of our Coast Guard stations, and so Congressman Delahunt was a champion for the Coast Guard. He created the bipartisan Coast Guard caucus in Washington, and that group led the effort to restore funding for the Coast Guard, and then eventually, within a matter of months, as those efforts succeeded, he was able to make sure that the local Coast Guard stations got fully staffed and fully funded, and he made sure that they had all the necessary equipment that was critical in terms of saving lives and being a resource to mariners, especially our fishermen. Delahunt was also a tireless advocate for our fishing industry, very supportive of our fishing fleets in the various ports around the district. He was very proud of having a very strong relationship with the Cape Cod Commercial Fishermen's Alliance based in Chatham. They're real visionary in their approach to fisheries management, and they've been an incredible partner to Congressman Delahunt over the years. But Bill was also very active on the international stage. He was a real promoter of access. Well, let's put it this way: he was very active in expediting the whole citizenship process for adoptive children. So families that were trying to adopt overseas would have to go through this incredibly bizarre and elaborate process for getting citizenship for their adopted children. And Bill was really very active in turning that all around. So he was able to sort of cut the red tape for all of that through a special law that he had passed. He was very active in promoting international tourism. As many people know here on Cape Cod and around the region and on the islands, this region, benefits significantly from tourism that, is international in its nature. What I'm talking about is people traveling from overseas coming to this country. The Cape is a very popular destination for foreign travelers, and Bill was very big on finding ways to sort of promote that and pursue funding for that. And even closer to home, Delahunt, in his first term, got a commitment from the VA to establish a primary care clinic in Hyannis. So that clinic that's there on North Street would not have happened but for Bill's tireless advocacy on behalf of veterans here in the region. And he also got the funds for the transportation center. If you travel by that transportation center in Hyannis, that was funded through an initiative that he pursued in Congress. He was also an incredibly strong supporter of the Merchant Marine and played a very active role in getting the new Mass Maritime Training Ship funded and authorized. Those are initiatives very proud of. Another area where he's very involved is with our community health centers. It's one of the things that the federal government does that is really impactful in terms of improving the health care of low to moderate income residents throughout the Cape and the islands, and he was a huge supporter of providing funds to expand access, to expand these community health centers around the Cape and the islands. That was something that he was very, very proud of. Another initiative that he was also very proud of is with respect to open space on Cape Cod. When Bill was first elected, there was a huge debate here on Cape Cod at the time about a Cape Cod land bank. Legislation had been filed by then Representative Eric Turkington to create this fund for Cape Cod, and the fund would be sort of fed from revenues derived from real estate transactions. And it had a lot of popular support, but it also had a lot of opposition, too, particularly from the real estate industry. So the legislation finally got passed on Beacon Hill, but when the ballot question ratifying the proposal was put out for the voters, it lost on the ballot. And there was an election in January 1998. And, that evening, we thought there was going to be a rally to celebrate this victory. But quite frankly, when the results came in, we found out that the measure had been defeated. And so Delahunt actually went to the campaign party, so to speak, or at least it was hoped to be a party. But he went and spoke to the volunteers that had gathered that night and pledged to work with them in getting another crack at this. So Bill brought together all the opponents, all the supporters, and together they hammered out a compromise, and it was put back on the ballot. And and at that in that election, it passed overwhelmingly. So Bill was known as a bipartisan member of Congress. He was known as a coalition builder, a consensus builder. He really felt it was important to hear from all sides on an issue, and he felt it was important to bring everybody to the table to find common ground, to hammer out solutions to problems. And he was very good at it. And I think the land bank story is, I think, one example, and there are countless examples of where Bill has done this, but I think there's one local example of where he, applied his skills and helped accomplish something that was quite significant for Cape Cod. That Cape Cod land bank became sort of an inspiration for a proposal that was languishing on Beacon Hill called the Community Preservation Act. And at the time the land bank passed, the first person that called him to congratulate him was a state senator and then eventually a secretary of environmental affairs, Bob Durand, who was the principal author of the Community Preservation Act. And Bob Durand was so thrilled that the Cape Cod land bank passed that Bill Delahunt worked with him to help get the Community Preservation Act passed and through the legislature. So, and that's still on the books, and it's still playing a huge role on Cape Cod in saving land, saving open space. So Bill very much relished that opportunity to help make a difference on that. And then in recent years, he was very active in getting a master plan done out at Joint Base Cape Cod. Back then, it was called the Massachusetts Military Reservation, and Bill felt it was important for the base to have a consensus vision for its future, because without it, it would be very difficult to reinvest in the installation. Getting funds to modernize military bases is not an easy task, but if you have a master plan and you have support of the surrounding communities, it's amazing what you can accomplish. So Bill really worked on getting a master plan done for the base, and one of the recommendations in the plan was to take additional measures to protect the lands in the northern 15,000 acres, and because that was the most critical part of the region's water supply. Beneath that land in the northern part of the base is what is called the Sagamore Lens. And the Sagamore Lens is more or less like Cape Cod's underground Quabbin Reservoir. It's the place where, the Upper Cape towns and Barnstable and Yarmouth all get their water. So Bill led the efforts to create the Upper Cape Water Supply Reserve. What that meant was that those 15,000 acres of land where the Sagamore lens exists, those 15,000 acres were converted to conservation land. And so under the law, the only kind of military training that can take place there is training that is compatible with water supply management and protection, as well as the protection and management of critical wildlife habitat. So Delahunt was the one that helped sort of lead that initiative and get that off the ground. So he's had a huge impact here on Cape Cod.
Yeah.
And those are
It is very interesting to hear all the different initiatives that were in the works for such a long time now under his tenure as well that we're still dealing with today, unfortunately.
Well, time has marched on, but we learn from our lessons and we try to apply, what we've learned. And I think today, we continue to work on these issues. There's a new generation of leadership. I know Bill inspired a lot of people to get involved in this work. And, I know that he had certainly an impact on me in terms of my efforts, and I think that's what I bring, to being a county commissioner. And some of the other work that I do on Cape Cod, dealing with ecological restoration and cleaning up groundwater and restoring coastal wetlands,
Yeah, it's certainly been a long road, and I'm sure we still have a long way ahead of us as well. But if actually as well, so I did want to ask a little bit more about what's been going on at the county as of late. And lately, of course, touching on water quality and stuff, we've been discussing recently, or rather the Assembly and the county has been considering the $13 million for the Aquafund loan program, as well as some other stuff related to local water quality. I know that you guys have been excited to welcome aboard Jennifer Flynn, the new superintendent for the Cape Cod National Seashore. So do you just want to highlight for our listeners some of the latest trends and some of the stuff you're most excited about at the county level as of late?
Well, yeah, let's talk a little bit about Aquafund. As most Cape Codders know, not too long ago, the Department of Environmental Protection established new regulations on septic systems, and throughout the Cape, there's a requirement to upgrade systems. Now, there's another pathway in terms of addressing the problems associated with septic systems, and that is communities can essentially exempt themselves from those requirements if they're locked into a comprehensive wastewater management planning effort that helps essentially focus on reducing nutrients and pollution into our estuaries and embayments by building, collection systems and sewer treatment plants. So it's an incredibly expensive undertaking. So at Barnstable County, the county has operated for quite some time a septic system loan fund. And so what we're trying to do with this fund, and what we've done, quite frankly, is we've rebranded it and restructured it so that we can provide more varieties of financial assistance, and we can also target those who are, either having to build a new septic system, a new innovative and alternate type of technology septic system, or we can essentially provide assistance to a homeowner to tie into the sewer line, because a sewer connection for a homeowner can be incredibly expensive, And so what we want to be able to do is we want to help everybody. Those are the two main options that homeowners have. So we wanted to make sure that we had a financial program here that could help everybody. And that's essentially what we've done. And we've also, the commissioners and other Cape selectmen, we've all had these discussions with state officials and our Cape legislative delegation about the need for additional funding because of this incredibly expensive unfunded mandate that's been imposed on the communities by the federal and state governments. In 1986, the federal government basically pulled the funding that it set aside for grants to the towns for this kind of work. So that money was pulled away back then, and towns that are working today to get their sewer systems built, are finding it very difficult because the amount of money that was available before is more or less dried up. So the county's been heavily involved in advocating on behalf of our towns and homeowners for more state and federal funds. And the great thing is that, our legislative delegation has worked to create what is called the Cape and Islands Water Protection Fund, which provides funds to the towns. And the existence of the fund has been incredibly important in helping get some of these projects off the ground. The other thing that we've done is we've worked with the state and the Clean Water Trust, as it's called, to get commitments of funding to underwrite some of our Aquafund initiatives. And the state's been incredibly supportive, and we've basically sort of laid out what our needs are, and the state's been really right there to support us. And I have to give credit to the governor's office, Governor Healy, Lieutenant Governor Driscoll. We've had meetings with them talking about our needs, and they've been incredibly supportive. And, with their help and the help of the treasurer, we've been able to get the funding that we need from the Clean Water Trust. And the Clean Water Trust, by the way, is also providing funds for a number of our towns in terms of their wastewater projects. And so clean water continues to be a priority, and the Aquafund is an important component of our overall strategy and how we fund wastewater investments, whether it's through helping homeowners finance an alternative septic system, or if it's funding that's needed in terms of building a wastewater, sewer, and treatment system. So we've been very active on that front. And as many Cape Codders know, we have a septic system test center out at Joint Base Cape Cod that has been sort of at the center of our efforts to test and develop new and innovative septic system technologies. So our hope is that as the years unfold, we can expand that test center and test and evaluate new technologies, new septic system technologies that can help us tackle this crisis. So we're very vested in it. We've worked with the Assembly, and we continue to work with the Assembly to set aside authority to borrow that $13 million in state funding that's available for us. So hopefully that process will come to a conclusion relatively soon, and we'll be able to access that $13 million in state funds and then put them to work here on Cape Cod. Again, we're going to be aggressive in going after state funding to help folks here on the Cape. We at least, deserve some priority attention from some of the new federal infrastructure dollars that are coming to Massachusetts. We really need, almost as much help as we can get. So we're very proud of where we stand with the Aquafund program, and we're confident that working with the administration, we'll get the resources that we need to really tackle that problem and, finance adequately the Aquafund.
All right, Mark Forrest, thank you so much for joining me for this conversation. It's been great to talk with you about Bill Delahunt as well as some of the stuff going on at Barnstable County, but I'm afraid that's about all the time that we have. But thank you so much for joining me for this conversation.
Grady, thank you. It's always a pleasure.